there is a forest in the far west where the dead walk. In the shadows of tall pine trees lie stone walls and great pyramids built long ago by the Old Ones, a mysterious, ancient race native to the lands known today as Varlamore and the Kabos lowlands. The Old Ones disappeared thousands of years ago and left behind one of the most enigmatic and disturbing places in Gielinor. Where they once lived, corpses shuffle amidst forgotten ruins, threaded through with the bloody roots of an insidious, parasitic plant. Broken limbs, exposed bone, even missing heads do not matter to them. They continue to wander like puppets hanging by thorned red strings. They shamble down ancient streets, bodies convulsing, heads occasionally turning to stare at something through glazed, empty eyes. And it's not just the humans here that are afflicted by this strange curse. The animals too, boars, lynx, bears, are all dead, reanimated by the same crimson tendrils that have ensnared homes, that spiral around the trunks of trees, that crawl across the dusty earth. This place is forsaken, lost in the choking grip of a plague known only as the Strangler. Let's examine what we know about this parasite, its effects, its origins, and the unsettling evidence that it might be spreading. These ruins and the forest surrounding them are known as the Stranglewood. They're first visited by the player during Desert Treasure 2, when the player travels to Zia in search of one of the medallions required to open the ancient vault. The infected who lurk here are not the Old Ones. These were regular humans who, at some point, entered the Stranglewood and were exposed to the parasite. Among them are a handful of soldiers wearing the colours and equipment of the Shazian army, the main military force of the nearby kingdom of Great Korend, who were presumably sent here to investigate the Stranglewood and never returned home. Now, though, they are no longer soldiers, just as the others here are no longer barkeepers or teachers or mothers or children. They are no longer alive, but nor are they technically dead, as the salve amulet does not affect them. They are only the strangled, suspended somewhere between life and death, consumed entirely by the parasite, mere hosts for it to spread its infection. In fact, the entire forest and everything inside it, the ruins, the mines, the animals, the people, has become the Strangler, like individual cells in a greater organism. The infected appear to share a sort of hive mind. If one notices an intruder, others nearby will too, and quickly, hordes of strangled will sprint towards them. This can also be seen with the vines of the Strangler that spread through the Stranglewood. If stepped on, they will alert all infected nearby. The Stranglewood is thousands of years old, and while its origins remain somewhat enigmatic, we can piece together a reasonable history from various quests. The dwarf Barus stands by the Burning Man in Lovacane and informs the player that it represents a victory won by the first dwarf settlers in the region over a great enemy that emerged from the Stranglewoods to the southwest. This evil was Vardorvis, a powerful vampire who held the rank of Carnifex Maximus in Zaros's empire. He was the chief headsman, tasked with hunting down and executing powerful foes. After the fall of the Zarosian fortress of Lasar at the hands of the Imkando dwarves, Vardorvis travelled west in pursuit of the dwarven leader, Yonrith Lovacane, who had fled to Zia with his closest allies after narrowly escaping the Carnifex Maximus's axe. Throughout the Stranglewood, the player can discover tatty pages of an ancient journal written by someone serving under Vardorvis, shortly after arriving on the continent. They tell the story of the Carnifex Maximus's hunt for Lovacane and the discovery of the Strangler. The writer explains that their group set up camp in an isolated wood on the far side of the landmass, so as to avoid detection from those they hunted. As Venators tracked the dwarves, some of the Zerosians remained to research the ancient ruins in the forest, hoping to send valuable information back to their empire. This research at first yielded little results, only that the ruins belonged to an extinct people who were wiped out relatively recently. Only once the Zerosians decided to study the ritual site to the northwest of the ruins did they make progress, but at great cost. The analysis of the ritual site led the author of the journal to believe that its architects caused their own extinction. They attempted something. It's not clear what exactly, but whatever it was, it didn't go well. And to learn more, they collected a sample of something. This was their gravest mistake. This sample was of the Strangler. At first, Vardorvis was uninterested in this research, until the journal writer informed him of its potential to kill. This got his attention and spelled his doom. Despite being a vampire, Vardorvis himself became infected, just as reports came in from the Venators that the dwarves had been found. Instead of resting and recovering, the Carnifex Maximus ordered his men to prepare for battle. But the dwarves were one step ahead. They had tracked the Zerosian hunters back to their camp and ambushed Vardorvis's group, killing or injuring most of the party. And worse still, Vardorvis himself was slain, beheaded by a simple weapon. The author rightly notes that this shouldn't have been possible. Vampires like Vardorvis can only be harmed with silver weapons. The page reads, "It's far more dangerous than we thought, and I fear others may be infected as well. Many have claimed to be feeling strangely unwell, and one of the legionnaires even started having visions." The last line in the diary is chilling. Of all things, he thought he saw the Carnifex Maximus's body move. These journal pages explain how Vardorvis's hunting party were defeated not only by the dwarves, but by the Strangler, a parasite that weakened their leader, allowing him to be killed by a regular blade, then took control of his body, animating the corpse of the vampire executioner and unleashing his wrath on his own people. In the present day, Vardorvis's body remains in the Stranglewood, a lifeless, headless husk laced with scarlet tendrils. His corpse stands in the center of the ritual site, the very place where one of his companions took a sample of the Strangler. Just like the rest of the Strangled, Vardorvis is no longer himself, just a particularly powerful body to be puppeted by the Strangler. He's no longer a vampire, just as when he was beheaded, non-silver weapons can harm him. As with the lesser Strangled, battling Vardorvis means battling the Strangler itself. Though the author of the Tatty pages doesn't understand what the Strangler is, or why it's here, he does correctly guess how. It was created by the ancient people indigenous to this continent, the Old Ones. This is confirmed by Cassonde, the researcher who the player follows into the Stranglewood in Desert Treasure 2. The Old Ones, despite being exceptionally powerful, were doomed, facing extinction for some unknown reason. To survive, they searched for the secrets of something called soul transference, presumably moving their souls into new bodies to cheat death. Before the events of Desert Treasure 2, during the Garden of Death, the player follows Cassonde's research in various underground ruins left behind by the Old Ones. By translating their language, they discover that the Old Ones believed that they could achieve soul transference by cultivating a plant, which the stone tablets refer to as death poison, as death create life. We can see what appears to be gardens where the Old Ones attempted to grow this death poison, lush and green, with grass, flowers and vines surrounding the farming patches. The final dungeon under the ruins of Mora, however, is different. The earth is a deep red, and eerily familiar tendrils surround the farming patches. A dirty note left behind by Cassonde here reads, "There's something different about this place, something familiar, a stench of death that's hard to forget. Could this be where the Strangler was born?" The tablet found here seems to suggest that the Old Ones here sent this death poison back to their home, and their home was destroyed. From this, we can surmise that the newly cultivated Strangler plant was used in a transference ritual, likely at the same site where Vardorvis is found in the present day, where the author of the Tatty pages discovered the parasite. The ritual went horribly wrong, however, and the Old Ones sealed their own doom, birthing a new evil as they did so. It was designed to cheat death, and in an ironic way, it does. Those infected with the Strangler parasite do not die, but nor do they live. In a cruel echo of the Old One's wish to transfer their souls into new hosts, the Strangler seizes control of living beings, and whether they be simple flora like trees or mighty vampire lords, they meet the same fate. They become the Strangler. Today, thousands of years after the disappearance of the Old Ones, the fallout from their failure remains. The Stranglewood is among the most dangerous places in Gielinor. The parasite ensnares any who travel too close to the ruins of its creator, and there's an unsettling amount of evidence pointing to the fact that the Strangler is spreading. The quest Shadows of Custodia reveals that, in the quaint town of Auburn-Vale, people have been disappearing. Strange claw marks have appeared on houses, and Ictus, a villager who lives on the outskirts of the town, claims to have seen night people wandering through Auburn-Vale after dark. These night people exist. They come from the Stalker Den in the Custodia Pass, which itself is just southeast of the Stranglewood. Inside the den are hundreds of strange creatures with long ears, shaggy grey fur, and horned red antlers, known as custodian stalkers. There are multiple different types of stalker, evidently at different stages of growth: baby, juvenile, mature, and elder custodian stalkers, who have been kidnapping people from the nearby town. But more unsettling than the creatures themselves is the cave they're found in. The Stalker Den is infested with thorned vermilion tendrils, the examine information of which claims that they are growing. And worse still, among these vines are the bodies of the stolen townsfolk, petrified, but unmistakably strangled. The Stalker Den is not within the Stranglewood, but there is, without a shadow of a doubt, the Strangler's presence here. This could be for one of two reasons. First, and most worryingly, the Strangler is spreading, and has somehow left the boundary of the Stranglewood and infested a nearby cave. Or second, this cave contains the original source of the Strangler, the death poison plant from which the parasite was originally bred. I think this second option seems less likely, because the custodian stalkers and their effects on the region are a recent phenomenon, which marks a change in how the Strangler behaves. In the Hunters Guild, players can find a book named Auburn Valley Ecological Reports, which mentions a lower than expected number of animal migrations through the region that year, and curiously, a much higher than expected number of rabbits. The report notes that these rabbits are visibly different from the Auburn Valley population, as they have fangs. In the depths of the Stalker Den lies a corpse, and next to it, another book titled On Migration Patterns. This book mentions an even lower number of animal migrations, again leaving the author stumped. The findings are in line with what would be expected had a new apex predator appeared in the area, but they found no evidence of such a species in the pass. Again, the book mentions strange, fanged rabbits moving about at dusk, and mentions that they appear to live in a significant system of caves, which they decide to venture in for further research. So it seems that the Custodian Stalkers are actually mutated rabbits, likely rabbits afflicted with a new strain of the Strangler. They are a new apex predator in the region, affecting the migration patterns of nearby animals and stealing humans for some sinister purpose in their den. The goal of the Custodian Stalkers may be hinted at by their name. Of course, they could simply be named after the Custodia mountains in which they've built their den, but it also carries a deeper meaning. A custodian is defined as someone with responsibility for protecting or taking care of something, or keeping something in good condition. The Stalkers certainly don't protect Auburn Vale or its townsfolk, so instead, this custody might be of something more sinister, the Strangler itself. The Custodian Stalkers appear to be based on jackalopes, real-world mythological creatures or cryptids resembling rabbits with the horns of antelopes. And fascinatingly, this myth may have come from sightings of rabbits infected with the Shope papilloma virus, causing cancerous lesions resembling horns to appear, which could support the idea of these being mutated, strangled rabbits. And at the risk of really stretching, the Stalkers look suspiciously similar to concept artwork of the Old Ones, especially their horns and the digitigrade hoofed legs. Considering that the Old Ones created the Strangler in an attempt to transfer their souls into new bodies, it would be cruelly ironic for these Stalkers, perhaps created by the Strangler infection, to mirror the beings who created it. Regardless, though they don't resemble the half-dead, half-alive Strangled found in the Stranglewood, the Custodian Stalkers are clearly afflicted by the Strangler in some way. The horns of the Elder Stalkers are blood red, and the more powerful Stalkers are able to inflict the same bleed effect as Vardorvis himself. Speaking of this bleed effect, it's very uncommon in RuneScape. In fact, only Vardorvis, the Custodian Stalkers, and the Emissary Enforcer fought during the Final Dawn currently apply it. Coupled with the bright red colour of the Strangler's tendrils, it raises the question of whether blood magic is responsible in some way for the Strangler. Perhaps it was used in the soul transference ritual, and gave rise to the insidious Parasite. Either way, it seems plausible that the Strangler has created the Stalkers, and is using the human bodies they steal to somehow cultivate the Strangler plague, perhaps to spread it far beyond the confines of the Stranglewood, which would mark a significant and terrifying evolution in the way the Parasite works. The Elder Custodian Stalkers have a unique drop. The Alchemist's signet, a ring with an item description and emblem that suggests it was owned by a member of the Alchemical Society in Alderin. It can be used to open a specific chest with a ring-shaped indent in the basement of the Society's headquarters, rewarding the player with herblore supplies, presumably items that once belonged to the owner of the ring. So it seems like, at some point, an alchemist was killed by a Custodian Stalker, either stolen away and taken back to their den, or caught exploring where they shouldn't have been. It's clear why the Custodian Stalkers might be of interest to a member of the Alchemical Society, whose goals are to study and further the art of herblore. The presence of the Strangler here would surely warrant research from an alchemist to study and perhaps attempt to cure this botanical evil. Because we do know that the Strangler can be cured, or at least prevented. In the Stranglewood are two species of plant that have grown resistant to the Parasite, the Argian bush and the Corbel herbs, some of the only organisms in the Stranglewood that have escaped the Strangler itself. Mixing these together will create a Strangler serum, and imbibing this will prevent one from becoming infected by the Parasite. Perhaps the alchemist who owned the ring had observed the apparent spread of the Strangler in the Stalker Den and was investigating a cure before he was killed. However, there are things about the Alchemical Society that we don't know yet. Supervisor Lalo explains that the Society's current affairs are largely focused on making money to fund their true goals, which Alaxi mentions is information only for senior members, and that, perhaps, the player will one day learn of it. Maybe this true goal is somehow connected to the Stalkers and to the Strangler itself. For now, though, we're left in the dark. Between the horrors of the Stranglewood, the aftermath of a botched ritual, a parasite that has rendered part of the world entirely uninhabitable, and the chilling mystery of the Stalker Den, where familiar crimson roots grow from stolen corpses, the Strangler is one of RuneScape's most exciting and terrifying entities. Thousands of years ago, it spelled the doom of the Old Ones, and unfortunately, it seems its story is not yet finished. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like, and subscribe if you haven't already for more old school RuneScape content. Thank you all so much for the fantastic response to my last lore video on Gorok Prison and Duke Sukelis. I've adored the lore and the world building of RuneScape for a long time, and it's been really fun to dive into it and create these videos. Let me know if you'd like to see more lore content, and if so, what elements of the lore you'd like to see me cover. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.